I love looking at photographs, incredible photographs of houses, whether it's in publication or on Instagram. And when I started looking, one name kept coming up over and over and over, and her photographs were so beautiful. I had to meet her. I reached out, and since then we have been like peas and carrots. So on today's episode of The Best of Raleigh, I've got a treat for you. One of the most beloved architectural photographers in the Triangle is joining us. Her name is Catherine Nguyen, and she's going to share her passion for architectural photography, how she styles a home, and her passion for branding and fashion. We'll see you in The Best of Raleigh.
Welcome to The Best of Raleigh with your host and real estate expert, Gretchen Coley, owner of the Coley Group. This show is all about the people and places that make the Raleigh area so special. Here's your host, Gretchen Coley.
Kat, I am so excited that you're here. Thank you so much for joining us for The Best of Raleigh. I'm really excited to have this conversation because I've worked with you for a while. I've watched your work, and you are so talented. You're one of the most renowned architectural photographers in this market, but you do so much more than just that. So tell us a little bit about how you got started in photography and why you're so passionate about it.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me.
Of course.
So what got me started is that I started traveling back in 2000, and I really loved to paint. So I was taking photographs, just snapshots of the different places that I traveled so that I could paint them later. But at one point, I went to Vietnam, which is where I was born, and I came back with 30-something rolls of film, just on a point-and-shoot camera. And my then boyfriend said to me, I think that you really like photography. And so he gave me my first real camera.
Wow.
And then I started taking classes here and there at the Cooper Union in New York City, which is where I'm from. And I slowly my love of photography overtook my love of painting.
Yeah.
And so in 2004, I decided I would go back to school for a BFA in commercial and advertising photography. So I went to San Francisco.
Wow.
I went to the Academy of Art.
Wow.
I got my BFA after 4 years, and I started my business in 2008.
Well, and that was a tough year to start a business in commercial photography, by the way. And so, I love talking about that because I think innovation is born out of passion, right? And being able to pivot and find a place, a path as an entrepreneur is a really big deal, especially when you start in a time
you get thrown a lot of
curveballs, but you love what you do. And there is a difference. I don't know that I knew that part of your story. But there is a difference between a photographer and someone who has really studied the art, right? And maybe it's that painting piece that kind of brings that in. But your photography, especially when it comes to interiors, is completely different than other people. So why are you so passionate about home photography?
So I have always loved fashion. I've always loved fashion on location, which is what I studied a lot of at the Academy, and I wanted to be like Annie Leibovitz. And
I want you to be her too, because I want one of those portraits.
Well, we can do that, but we'll talk about that later. So I loved during school to shoot models on location, like the Sutro Baths in San Francisco and wherever that was just interesting.
Yeah.
So I kind of got into that, and then I also got into product photography. So I was shooting luxury goods just in studio to learn lighting and learn the techniques. And then I kind of fused the two things, because if you think about interiors, it is a big product shot.
It is.
I mean, it's just a large scale product shot. So you're moving this. I mean, and Gretchen's been on shoots with me, but it's like, can you move that just a little?
Yeah,
and
just
a little. I mean about
an inch.
An inch.
Yes.
Here or there, and you translate that into the camera, and it just becomes something different.
It's true styling, right? Yeah. It's true styling of a space, but to be able to get a shot of a room and it speaks to how a person is going to live in it.
Right.
It's truly an art, and I think you're really good at that.
Thank you.
So how does that, what are you seeing?
What I see is, so I'm very lucky to work with some very talented designers, builders, architects, and then luxury real
Every
estate.
once in a while, it's a me.
Yeah. So what I love to do is translate the vision that is the space so that when you see it, it's a moment. You don't know why it's good, but you feel like you're there. And that's what I want to show. And I want your eye to kind of slowly move through the image. You know what I mean? And so that's where all the placement of things and the styling of the objects comes into play.
Well, your work has been recognized all over the country, and I know that you go all over the country and shoot, whether it's architectural. Are you still shooting any product, or is it more
I don't shoot so much product, but it kind of plays into shooting the styling on shoots for interiors. So
you've been on cover after cover after cover. Right now you're on the cover of Walter. One of your photographs is on the cover of Walter Magazine. But you are very well known in Midtown Magazine and many of the other magazines, and you've been published all over the country. That's got to be so rewarding for you.
So this was funny. Last year, maybe it was Thanksgiving time, and I'd had a shoot with Brian H. Murray of Brian H. Murray Interior Design, and he said, I need an image for Architectural Digest. And I said, oh, that's great. Okay, well, let's shoot it. So we styled it, we shot it, and then he said, I need the image tomorrow. So I started laughing because I thought he was joking, but he actually wanted it tomorrow. So we did that, and then I forgot about it, and I just went on about my business. And then I was flipping through Architectural Digest maybe a month and a half later, and I was like, I know that image. And it was my image, and I was in Architectural Digest.
Wow. So that's got to be so rewarding.
I mean, that's the dream if you're an interiors and architecture photographer, is to get into AD. But I mean, it was an advertorial, so it's not like a full spread yet.
Yet.
So we're working towards that. I've seen some of my images in Elle Decor, in Vanity Fair, so it's moving in the direction.
Yeah, you are mixing that fashion. Well, and speaking of mixing fashion and architectural photography, because this is where I get really excited and this is where you get excited, is branding shoots. And so one of the first shots that we did together, you had done some of my shots, but we did a full day branding together. And it was so much fun because you probably can see, I'm a real outgoing, kind of wild kind of personality, and she is so peaceful, right? And you have this zen about you where, I'm getting excited and I want to get this shot, and you're like, you never say no, but you say,
this is how we're going to
move over here, move over there, turn your body this way. And it's so much fun. And you've actually shot my daughter and I, and we're preparing for another shoot with my daughter and I. And all of these have been in houses. Actually, I think we did one in downtown Raleigh, but for the most part have been in homes. And talk a little bit about your passion behind that branding and really being able to bring out the vibe of a woman.
So what I feel is very interesting is that it's the love of fashion and interior design, and then I get to do those things together. So I think that that's really wonderful. And I remember when Gretchen got in contact with me and she said, hey, I'm thinking about doing a branding shoot. And I said, let's get on the phone. Let's talk about what you want your brand to look like or what you want to reinforce. And we were just on the same page. So it was just really fun to get together and figure out how to place you in the images with Devin as well, like one of your teammates, and then just to bring it all together.
To tell the story of who we really want to represent ourselves to be. Like, I think there's a lot lost in branding because I feel like a lot of people feel like it's an egotistical thing when it's, me sitting on a sofa taking a photo of myself. But for me, I feel like it's conveying who I am through an image and appealing to the people who are like me and who I want to attract to myself. And it's,
it's telling your story.
It's telling your story, and I feel like you do such a great job of capturing that. So a lot of that comes from that initial call, right? But then when you're on set, like, how are you helping someone who may not be as good in front of a camera as someone else?
Well, so I mean, obviously you want to have the initial call where you talk about what your brand is, what you want it to convey. And then I remember talking to you about what is a day in the life. So we talked about how does the day start? And you're talking about being with your family and then you moved into working and going to these different properties and going to job sites. And so I tried to translate all of this information into moments in these images in these houses that are beautiful, by the way, that you get to represent, which is amazing.
I'm a very lucky girl.
I'm a lucky girl
Yes,
too.
we are lucky girls.
I get to look into all these beautiful spaces.
Well, we get to do something we love with people that we love to do it with.
Yes.
And as a woman entrepreneur, it is a lonely business, right?
Yeah.
And so when you get to create something and you get to do that with people who you care about, it makes all the difference in the world.
Yes, working with a great team is just amazing, and your team is amazing.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. Well, I want to talk a little bit more about where you're going. What does the future for you look like? What are you excited about doing? I asked you like 10 questions at one time. So let's just back it up and ask one. So what does the future look like for you? What are you excited about doing?
So I love editorial photography because it tells the story behind these spaces. And part of that is getting into the more national magazines, which I'm headed in that direction. I'd like to do a little bit more of that. And also, once you're in front of these magazines, it's about name recognition. And once you have that sort of comfort and people know who you are, then you get to shoot sort of the bigger commercial shoots, which is what I would like to do. I mean, I shot for Trex, which is, the decking company some years ago, and they flew me out to West Hollywood, and I had a team, and it was
That's so cool.
It was a very cool shoot. Like, I brought a stylist out, I brought an assistant out. We shot at this very famous producer's house, whose name I can't say.
Sidebar conversation.
But what was interesting is that it was me, my stylist, who's a woman, then my assistant, who's a woman, and we were all we had this U-Haul full of furniture, we were hoofing it, and the owner of the house and his wife had a daughter who was about 12, and he came to me later and said, I really admire that your team is all women, and that I think it's a very good role model for my daughter, and that was really touching. And he's super famous, but he's super down to earth, and he's wished me a happy birthday on Facebook.
That is so cool. And, going back to, we did a shoot with my daughter, and I don't entrust her to everyone. And I had a vision for what I wanted this to look like, because she was at 14 years old, I think she was at the time. And I wanted her to be comfortable in her skin and to see
she was
that.
Very comfortable.
Yeah. But I think that it was a testament to you and, really showing women that you can be who you want to be unapologetically, and you can show who you are, and surrounding yourself with women who are able to bring that out in you is really an important piece. And that's a little bit of what you are in my life, is you're one of those girls that brings out
I like to
the best.
Connect people, and especially when you work with a good team, it feels amazing. So one of the shoots that we did together, we were with Devin.
Yeah.
And you wore your Empower Women t-shirt, and I love that about you and your company, and
Yeah. So you're working on some super fun projects. Are you still expanding the branding side of things, and you're still doing a lot of branding photography?
I am, as a matter of fact. I just got to shoot Tony Frazier's team, which was wonderful, in the space, the new space that he's at. I'm not sure if you
I can't wait to see
check
that.
it out. But Peter Millar used to be in that building as well. And so they had just moved out of their offices. So it was the same architecture as his space, but without desks. So we kind of went in there and played around with the open brick and the windows, and it was a really fun shoot, just to bring all these architects who sit in front of a computer all day with their AutoCAD and just kind of let them get comfortable in front of the camera.
I love that. So when you are telling the story of the rooms and the spaces, and you shoot for a lot of builders and a lot of designers, and I can only imagine the designers have a much different capacity for what that story is going to be for that house, right? But then you come into it with a fresh eye. So how are you figuring out what is the way someone's going to live in that space? What is the story?
So there are a couple of different things. Obviously, I offer to look at the styling prior to a shoot, so I get snapshots or I do a walkthrough with the designer, because actually, I don't know if you know about this about designers, but they love to design the space for a living and make it beautiful, but that's very different than styling it for a photograph.
I agree.
So often they will call in a stylist through me, or I will, if it's not heavy duty styling, like bringing in furniture, then I will just help them style it.
Or if it's you and me, we just style it ourselves.
We just style it ourselves. Literally, we styled it ourselves. But so it's about translating the beauty that they've already created into an image that makes visual sense. Because you can walk into a room and these two things may look centered on the table, but when you come from this angle, all of a sudden you need to move things so that they still look centered, even though in person they do not. It's a visual translation. It's like I'm speaking one language with the camera, and bringing it from reality into there. So
that makes so much sense. And your images do, and we'll flash some of these up for those of you who are watching this on YouTube. You'll be able to see a little bit of this. Your images look like you could just go sit down in there.
I want people to want to sit down.
Yeah.
Or a cocktail.
Yeah, or a cocktail, and you can just really enjoy that. So you're so talented, and I love every opportunity that I get to work with you. And if you're out there and looking for someone, whether it's for branding or just a great person to know in this market, you need to reach out. You need to reach out to Kat and get on her radar, because she is in the know everywhere and has such a sense of style. So Kat, tell us where they can find you.
So you can reach me on Instagram at Catherine Nguyen and Photo.
Spell it.
CatNguyen Photo. Facebook is also Cat Nguyen Photo. And then on my website, which is Catherine and then Nguyen, Nguyen.com.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So always looking for new projects and always looking to grow, right?
Always.
Well, I am so grateful to have you in my life. You are such a girl empowerer, and I appreciate you so much. Thank you for sharing this with everyone. And I appreciate you saying yes to being on the Best of Raleigh.
I appreciate you asking, so it all works out.
Well, thank you so much.